and welcome back to the Self-Help Bookshelf. This is the High Leverage Actions podcast where we talk about small changes that can leverage massive changes in your life. And today we are going to be talking about harnessing the power of the human collective. Oh, what does that mean, you say? Well, we're going to be talking about animals, basically, whether it's beehives, ant colonies, and herds of sheep or elephants, and comparing that with some human behavior and how we can use that knowledge to extract some personal development processes. So I'm Kay Reeve. I'm an emotional awareness expert. This is my co-speaker. Hi,
Hi,
Rory.
I'm Rory Lemon. I go by Rory Lemon Aid, AID to help. And you can find me on the internet. And I'm a neurodiversity and creative flow coach. I
Yay.
love to help people um, move through their procrastinations into getting their visionary projects out there through creative flow state training.
Brilliant. And for me, I have often said that I'm here to support parents with teenagers and neurodiversity and young adults, but you know what? I am. But I need to add in there this week, I'm actually looking to work with coaches, therapists, trainers, and mentors who work with families, teenagers, young adults, because I'm looking to train the mentors and trainers. But anyway, we'll come back to that at the end and I'll fill you in more because there are shifts happening. And actually, it fits in with what we're doing about hierarchy and changes and personal development and all of that. So, yeah, today's conversation is I'm kicking off this today is it was through a workshop Rory was doing recently, and he started talking about ants, and it just sparked my curiosity. I went, I reckon we could have a really good conversation about that, but with ants, with beehives, with herd mentalities. You know, whether it's herds like sheep where they just follow each other aimlessly, or herds of elephant where they actually are a collective and they collaborate to survive and to roam and everything that they do. And I thought there is so much there that we can look at and compare with how we behave as humans, but also in how sometimes that mentality, when we often feel like we're just a little ant in the colony and we're just a lost number in millions, how can we use those feelings and the knowledge to look at where we are as individuals, look at where we want to be and how we can create those shifts through personal development until you feel like you're in the place where you fit and you belong and you're happy. Because ideally, that's what we all want to do. And I think a lot of that is around finding purpose and value. And I think that fits within every creature on the earth when they have hierarchy within their ranks. Even when we talk about chickens and pecking order, but every human being wants to be able to feel that wherever they fit within the human collective, it's a place where it aligns with our values, with our sense of being, with the purpose, the jobs that we love doing. Like they say, if you're doing what you love doing, it's not working. Whereas if you're doing something because you have to for pay at the end of the day and you're not loving it, it's a job. So we're going to look at how we can find more value and purpose in finding our place in the human collective. And I know Rory and I have definitely worked on this for years. That's why we're here talking on the High Leverage Actions podcast, because we have worked on our place in the human collective, still working on it. So have you got any takes on that so far today, Rory?
Have I? Well, yes,
Yeah,
far
of
too many
course.
probably. Yeah. So just wanted to. Yeah, I love this idea of, well, firstly, the first thing that comes up for me is being an individual and then part of recognizing, technology is amazing at helping us to see globally what's going on. So we can, it's not just gone from tribe to nation to before we knew what was beyond our knowledge of what's our environment from the tribe perspective. It was other tribes that seemed different and weird, and then those tribes became towns and national, And then the nationality, the nation, and obviously that still goes on. It obviously but it shows how um the mentality can stay the same, but also evolve as well. And how it stays the same is often what we can call the drift, the inertia of I think we learned helplessness.
Yeah, learn or learned helplessness. Yeah.
Learned helplessness is where there's a sort of traditional thought ways of thoughts, the way people talk, the stories about health, the stories about money, all the words that we use to describe things basically could and do manifest the same thing. So talking about a problem or complaining about a problem, as an example, can just keep the problem there, and actually it's only the people that don't stick on that and want something new and stay stuck on it, no matter what, actually change laws, change things, change technology and all that sort of stuff. So having a vision is so important around it, which is actually outside of the herd. So what we can look at is what's going on as a herd, and then choose what we want to be focusing on, what we don't. My second point was like the fact that we're human comparing ourselves to animals, and how we can look at how there are ways in which things do work with the herd. Obviously, it's not all doom and gloom. We have empathy, curiosity, creativity, and all of that amazing powers that we have as humans to move forwards or keep as a collective moving forwards. Um, and it's just the fact that our brains have got so more intelligent that we have this crystal clear observational consciousness that can suddenly be completely away from even forgetting about being part of a herd and just being like I'm a person, and just becoming self-centered, as it were, around all of that. So that's that amazing ability that we have with our imaginations, and to be independent but also codependent, and interdependent, as we've talked about on other podcasts as well. So my point being, just to remember that I've got more to say, but I'll just throw it back up and recovering all of that is like noticing what does work as humans and what doesn't, as a herd mentality is super important.
Oh, brilliant, Rory. And that's amazing how you've brought in there about right through from the original families and tribes and communities, right through to these massive societies and super cities that we have today. And yeah, it's very easy to be part of something that is so big and yet still feel so isolated in the middle of it as well. And like you said, realize actually I'm one individual in the middle of all of this. And so sometimes I think the biggest problems people have with feeling part of the human collective is when we do feel isolated. And I think it's very easy for people to feel isolated, especially when they've got mental health problems or physical health problems, and perhaps they've had a breakup, lost jobs. And, at the end of the day, we are still, just as millions of years ago, cave dwellers, except our caves are square and look a little bit prettier, but we still live in caves. And it's strange when you actually bring it back to think, you know what? Yeah, we are. We aren't any different in that sense, apart from how we construct them and fill them. And the other thing is, when we look at how society has changed over all of those years, in terms of we've gone from little families and communities to having religion and education, and then there's policing, like justice systems and legal systems. There's correction systems afterwards. There's so many things. And then there's the sciences, there's construction and engineering and technology. And now we're moving into AI as well. And things have changed so drastically over the years. And then through that, there have been some incredible processes that have been learned and forgotten and being relearned when we look at, and I know Rory's very interested in a lot of the star calendars and things, and like people used to navigate by the stars, and nowadays we all use this little technological thing on our phone called Google Drive or something, or SatNav or TomTom or something similar. And without it, we're lost. And I think so much of society has been lost in learning as well, that again, we've just like, what do we do when that's not working? What do we do? And so when we lose families and jobs and homes and everything, and then we just feel like one lonely person in the middle of a world of ants, and it can feel like you are that one lost ant in the ant colony or the one lost bee in the beehive. And so it's, how do you find your place again? And the other thing is, if you sometimes feel like you're downtrodden, or you feel like you're looked down upon by everybody, are you feeling like you're low down in the level of the colonies, or henpecked, or what they call under the thumb by everybody else, and you're not able to stand up for yourself and you feel oppressed? I think probably the best word to summarize all of that is oppressed. Is how can we shift out of that space and find a place where you feel you have that sense of purpose? And it can all change, and this is something we know all too well, having done it throughout jobs, through family life, friendships, everything, is it can all change when you work on your personal development. Because if you are feeling like you're in that small, unrecognized space in society, then it's because your energy is there, and you need to, or it benefits you, I shouldn't say need to, but it benefits you to work on how you communicate with the world, how you reach out to the world. The energy that you put out is the energy that you get back. And it all changes through personal development. And we've talked about a lot of different topics on here already. I think we must be getting close to 20 now. And we know we are not going to run out for a while yet. There's lots of topics. I'm working on my next book as well. And my word, the index in that is like, that's 3 pages long just for the index, still on A4 at the moment. So there is more than enough to learn in personal development over time that will help you expand out of that space. And as your personal development expands, so will the recognition of other people, and they'll go, oh, you're capable of doing this, and you've got the right mentality for that. Oh, and you've got just the energy we need for this job. And you'll get invited into things that find you a place and a value in life. And I know certainly for me, there's a part of strategy that I work with, which is about, when I talk about the emotional cycle a lot with the work I do with emotional awareness work, the emotional cycle has one of 5 changes that can happen. We change between emotions because something changed. What is it? And then every change has a root cause. And my framework is based around that, but it's a framework I can teach for pretty much a year long with the personal development. But one of the things that I teach in that, which is really powerful, is recognizing that when something changes and you don't know the solution to change it or the root cause, that's when we call out for other people for help. Whether it's a flat tire on a car, whether you need your house fixing, whatever it is, whether you need medical help, whatever changes you need help with in life, we reach out to other people. And finding your place in society is actually recognizing the changes and the root causes and which problems you can solve for other people. So maybe part of not feeling like a part of society is not recognizing how you can contribute to that society. And the moment you find something you can contribute, I can see Rory lighting up as I'm getting there with this. I know I'm hitting the nail here. I can see him lighting up on the other side of the screen. So the moment you know what your pain point is, what your lessons are, what you can contribute, what your value is, what your purpose is, you will automatically step into your place in that colony, in the hive, in the herd, whatever it is. And it is a really powerful thing to recognize. And I saw a video this week, which was really powerful on, I think it was on Facebook actually, about when we feel like we're just part of the herd mentality. And we often talk about people as sheep, and people just follow each other. So the people who've yet learned, not learned, as Rory says, in learned helplessness, just follow each other aimlessly like sheep. Now, this is not to be judgmental and mean or nasty to them. It is part of the learning to come out of that sheep like herd mentality and move into a place where you can make your own choices, choose your own direction, and find your own value. But this one I saw the other day was there was a campfire, and somebody brought a herd of sheep in, and this guy walked around the fire. And as he came back round, the herd of sheep followed the lead one. He had one that was trained. And it was obviously like he'd made a close connection with this sheep, and he was feeding it or treating it or something, and it followed him. But as he went round the fire and they all followed in and followed round, and he brought the lead one back to the tail of the herd, he then stepped away and the whole herd were just going round and round the fire, chasing each other and running like a herd of sheep do when they run, when there's a purpose, or they are just following the herd. Because I grew up on a farm where I lived literally 3 doors from the shepherd. So I grew up watching sheep in the fields all around me. It was the first thing I heard in the morning in spring when I woke up was the sheeps and the lambs every year. So I got used to watching this herd mentality in them as much as people talk about it and watch it. It's another thing to actually observe it year after year. And the sheep are kind of all over here doing all their different things. And if anything spooked them, they all gather together in a herd. And if the dog runs around, they all gather together in a herd. And if they're trying to herd them from one field to another, they all follow together in a line close together. And this is how people kind of follow each other. Well, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do, so I'll follow everybody else. But as humans, it takes recognition and effort to suddenly think, oh, do you know what? I don't have to follow everybody else. I don't have to be a duplicate copy. I can be unique. I can learn what I want to learn, share what I want to share, and do what I want to do. And that is when we start to come out of that learned helplessness. And so with the guy around the campfire, it wasn't until he stopped that lead sheep and gave it a treat and walked away with the lead one that all the others then followed him back out of the field. But how dangerous was it that they were just running round and round and round this campfire with it alight without any of them actually knowing why they were doing it, other than following the one in front. So let's get more people out of herd mentality and into something where you can start being yourself. So that really went on, Rory. That was not rehearsed, but it felt like it.
Powerful. Thank you, Kay. Thanks for
Right.
sharing. Ah, yeah, that's just amazing to hear that story, and it gives it a great idea to just to remember if that remind if you know like you said if you're reminded of feeling stuck or isolated in these moments, even remembering those things, I think it's really important to you know take that moment to feel still and calm and relax um around it, because yeah, it is powerful um to notice that and suddenly realize, well, have I been, have I learned all this stuff from somewhere else? So I think that's important to recognize. And what I loved about what you said about values, so remembering value or values, and you might have, you've seen, you might, people watching might have seen, I've got use cards here to help me with anxiety and stepping through those abilities, or just get I put them together to help me with social anxiety, and so that I could go and not drink. I didn't want to drink alcohol anymore, and I wanted to carry on going out. So, because alcohol is something that really affects the body and the mind and yet when I've designed, I spent time designing these, I could pull out anyone at any moment. It doesn't have to be social, but it is about being able to then rejoin society as well. And I just pulled this one, which is co-creation, which is the idea of and you could co-create that with other people, It reminds me of what I'm about is which is creating co-creative spaces and or co-creating with the universe, deciding what is wanted and connecting to it, whatever it is that reminds us of. But it's again, it's that creating that co-creation and joy, their values and so yeah, values reminding me of my value. I suddenly can't think or feel anything else when I'm reminded of that. So it's only staying in that zone for longer and longer periods of time, getting clear on what those values are and what are highest values. They mean more to more people. So there's lots of individual values, maybe like playing table tennis, for instance. But for me, playing table tennis brings me joy, and joy is a higher value. So on the cards, I don't have table tennis, I have joy because it covers so many other things. The reason why I'm saying all this is because designing and creating and reminding regular remindings of higher values helps us feel connected to the herd from a non-helpless learned helpfulness. Let's call it learned helpfulness. So, and that's where we can evolve if we keep remembering to do that and inspiring others to do that too. And I loved what you shared about finding that thing that helps other people. And the other points that just come up to my mind around that is one other thing is that just to building on that thing of becoming internationally connected through the internet is we're able to see again everything going on for everyone, which actually, if we're in the right mindset or we're connected and feeling empathy, we feel part of that whole system and we see each other as equals in those moments of empathy. And so it's only technology that's allowed us to do that too. So it can only really evolve beyond what doesn't work further. And we can't get past unless we start to think about aliens and planets and more foreign things to get worried about. But we can still see a global empathy now. It's kind of we can't unsee that anymore. So that is actually rolling. That's actually happening. We've always wanted to come back to peace and joy and love. So so it's just remembering that it's a phase of things when everything feels a struggle when it's not to focus on those things. The final piece that I'll bring up to get to now is this sense of that I learn by teaching, whereas some people learn by listening and implementing, or sharing what they know, or just being having a directive. So it's okay to be part of the I like to be told or given directive and just get on and do it. That's okay too, as long as it's consciously again has a purpose to it, like you say, purpose and value to follow it consciously, not unconsciously. So yeah, that's what I get from all of this. So thank you.
Oh, that's really good, Rory. Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, even following directives. Like, I mean, I used to work for an offshore wind farm, and I've talked about this job before, but it's just made me think about how, for me, actually getting that job felt like serving a higher purpose. So every day I went to work, I felt joy in what I did. And yes, I worked for a management team. I was given, directions from multiple different areas. And I used to have to make this massive to-do list, but I felt like I was serving a purpose by doing it. Now, after I'd left the wind farm, I had a different job where I was working in an ice cream parlor. And instead of being an assistant, I was a supervisor. So it sounds great, doesn't it? I've gone from assistant to supervisor. But mentally, it was actually the other way around because as an assistant, I was serving a management team. I was actually further up the hierarchy when you put the business chart together because there was a power plant manager, me off to the side, and the rest of the structure of all the people who are actually more qualified than me. But it was about where I sat within that structure and how I served people and worked with them as a team. And I never looked at myself as better than anybody else, but I did see myself as a valuable part of the team. Everybody in the structure and the hierarchy of the business had a purpose to serve. And when we all fulfilled our purpose together, that team was powerful. And then when I went to work for this ice cream parlor and I was a supervisor, so I had other people to guide and support and mentor through their daily jobs, very often younger adults and teenagers. But somehow the structure and the hierarchy of the overarching company, because it was attached to a bigger establishment and a restaurant, there was this micromanaging that came down. And we were being watched on camera and we were being nitpicked about this and that and something else. And the communication, and this is another big thing about where we fit within this area. And we talk about then things like being henpecked. We all refer to being henpecked as not the most effective way to be emotionally constructive over each other. Like chickens will literally peck each other to death pretty much when one feels like they're in a better place than the other or more dominant. And that is a lesson that we can learn that we don't want to be like, is we don't want that henpecking type of order and that aggressiveness in the ranks. So there are things like beehives and ant hives where they're very constructive and resourceful and team driven, whereas henpecking is very much self and you're less than me and I'm going to pick on you. And that is a mentality we can learn from the opposite end to avoid. But that's how I felt working in this ice cream parlor. So I'd gone from this very, very self automated job with a lot of purpose, a good wage, lots of responsibility, to serving ice cream and feeling henpecked every day by the management, being micromanaged by little details that were so insignificant, they weren't relevant, and felt like I wasn't trusted to oversee the job. And so this is what we can learn from looking at mold. We could look at packs of wolves, herds of cattle. And there's actually, it's interesting. There was a big study done in Russia. Was it after Chernobyl? Because obviously the fallout from Chernobyl, there was this massive area that nobody could go into for many, many years. And yet in this area, there were some animals that had survived. And because they have a shorter breeding time than humans, they were able to reproduce. So although each generation didn't live as long as expected, they were living long enough to reproduce. So it was cats and dogs and cattle. There was a herd of cattle that survived and kept growing. And because it was the first time that nobody had been able to interfere with a herd of cattle, and they were allowed to be in their natural construct as a group or a colony, when people were finally able to go in and observe them, they were able to observe how a herd of cattle interacted with each other in a way that had never been observed on farms and in stalls and in milking sheds and in fields. And so it was quite refreshing. It's on YouTube somewhere, I'm sure of it. But this documentary all about how they were observing the mentality between the cattle because they'd been left to build their own society in their own way, in their own herd. And I find things like that really, really fascinating because, yeah, humans do interfere a lot with the mentality of other creatures on Earth. And so that was another good one. So, yeah, there is a lot to learn with it. They say henpecking, herds, colonies, hives. But, yeah, there's a lot of people feel like they always want to be the queen bee. But I think another one I would like to just bring on here if I can, I know we're getting near our half an hour, but is when we talk about people who are the top leaders, like the monarchs and the global leaders and everything else. And I think it's easy from the bottom to look like they're at the top and look at it like this height thing. And like, if you're down here, you're not good enough. But when you think about something like an ant colony or a beehive, it wasn't like the queen bee was born into the worker role and then worked her way up. A queen bee is born into that role. She is produced specially for that role. So it's more a set of skills that she learned from young rather than something that she was selected for and picked as something special from out the rest of the crowd. And I think that's very much the same with humans, is sometimes we forget that where we are in society is because of how we were raised, not because there's anything wrong with us. And we were raised with a certain set of skills and cultures and beliefs and values. And we get to that age where we think, as I was saying earlier, is this really where I belong in society? And we're no longer part of the home. You're going out to work, you're trying to find your own place in society. And it's like, well, where do I belong? And that is where it's down to each individual's responsibility not to sit there and put blame on upbringing, because that's easy to do, is to feel like, well, that's how I was raised. This is what I'm made for. I can't do anything because I come from a poor background. I can't do anything because I come from an abusive background or whatever. And I'm not saying that's not the case, but there are so many people in this world who have come from all kinds of backgrounds and still managed to make it to levels of success. Now, it doesn't have to mean, I mean, when you talk about people with learning disabilities as well, or neurodiversity, it doesn't have to be this ceiling over you either to stop you from shifting upwards in your mentality within the human collective. And when we talk about people like Richard Branson, he had dyslexia. He'd struggled in school. He was a school dropout. And yet, somewhere out there, he decided that he was still going to step forward and grow and develop. And he, from a young age, embraced that process and realized that even though he wasn't very good at some things, it didn't mean he couldn't do others. And he found his place in society quite early and grew, as we knew, the entire Virgin Empire. And so many other people in the world have done similar, in that, I mean, I could even say I'm a school dropout. I failed most of my exams. In fact, I left school with two, which was one GCSE and one O level. So we're going back to the year where they were testing the GCE subject in my school alongside all the O levels. And that was all I left school with. And neither of them felt like they had any value. I had geography and art. What am I going to do with them in life? So I had to still keep working on my personal development. I went to sixth form. I went back to evening classes. I've always studied and gone and done more training. I've read books. I've watched videos and TV documentaries and talked to other people until I've grown and grown and grown until today. Here I am doing my part to serve back what I've learned. Now, at the time as well, sometimes timing comes in. Sorry, Rory, I'm really going off on one here today. You did say I could lead this one. But timing is another one, that we don't always know our purpose until a little bit later down the timeline. Like for me, helping people understand emotional awareness in how we can support teenagers and young adults. I wouldn't have left school knowing I was going to do that. I didn't even become a parent knowing what it was going to be like to parent teens. That was years ahead of where you're thinking about having a baby. And so it wasn't until my son, my youngest one, was at about 20 years old, and I discovered a way to help him out of suicidal depression, that I realized I'd found something that became my purpose in life, and then built my values, my mission, my vision, and all my drive around that. And that's what led to me designing the diagram of the human emotional cycle, which on the back of Brain Unchained. And so it's only in the last 10 years of my life that I've been working towards this. But that doesn't mean that everything I did beforehand didn't have value, because I learned skills in every single job I did, even though the job didn't feel like a purpose. Even though some of the jobs aligned more with my values, they still didn't feel like my life purpose. And so if you feel like right now you're not in the place where you want to be, don't think that this is not of value to you where you are in at the moment. Open your eyes, open your ears, and take stock of the world around you. Because there are two things you can learn every day from watching other people. One is what to do that aligns with your purpose, your vision, your mission, your values. And the other one is watching other people and learning what not to do. And that for me was the biggest lesson I learned many, many years ago, long before I did any of this, was to watch what to do and what not to do. And everybody I encountered, I learned something from. And you keep doing that on repeat and repeat, And the other tip is go back and watch more episodes of our podcast, because we've already covered things like comfort zone and boundaries and barriers, top-down learning, and all of these are relevant to shifting within this human collective by shifting the energy within yourself. So I think I've covered enough, Rory, for today. I could go on about this for hours because I find this a fascinating topic. But I think there is so much we can learn by just watching the world around us so we can fit into the world around us.
Nice. Very, very cool.
Sorry.
Excellent. 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 As yeah. I'm just filtering what I could feedback or just offer up as a continuation on this topic in terms of like team teamwork, you know. But yeah, I do also love this topic so much that yeah, just the idea of
Oh,
um
like interdependence is another one. We did one on. That's another episode.
yeah.
Interdependence is very important if you want to find your value, your purpose in life, and your mission, and you want to be able to put value into into society. Then interdependence is important as well, and being able to work with other people, like you say, teamwork.
Mhm. Yeah, awesome. Uh, yeah, just the final thing that you mentioned that just wrap it back round is those that change things. Yeah, it's having that vision and working on what the vision is. So that it's not to, like you say, it's not to do with where you are in it as in life, and as I've seen um over 155 people uh change their identity uh to discover what's possible for them and declare it and make it happen in a very short space of time if the energy, the focus, and the support, accountability, and
Mm.
coaching is there. So that's what I've seen
Me included.
in
Me included.
yeah, yes, you're one of those over 155 people.
Yeah.
But yes, it's amazing. But yeah, it's really getting present on that vision and just coming back to that sense. That's really what people focus on to make happen. Vision and staying focused on the targets, whatever it is, regardless of whether it's not to do with, you can stay focused and try to aim for success and burn out and be stressed at the same time. It's how to interplay all of that, the passions, the value, the self-care to get that vision out there, and just defining it. Defining it is so important, and that's what I'm very, 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 very happy to help people with, is vision mapping is a very, you know, fundamental part of the process of what I help people to do, because that creative vision is what allows people
Mm.
forwards with.
Yeah, that's very true, Rory, and that is excellent work you do. And certainly, I've seen a difference from where I was just over a year ago. I'd been off sick for 3 years. I was struggling with lots of things to do with health and mental health, and I'd had almost a year where I'd not been able to communicate effectively at all. I'd almost stopped communicating completely at one point and was being tested for Alzheimer's. And so, June last year, I was still unable to speak on camera effectively. And July, I was then finally feeling okay, I was still stuttering a lot, still missing words, but I finally felt by July, and this is healing from the December, I finally felt like, okay, I'm going to go and try networking. And that was where I met Rory. And from there, I've done a lot of work with Rory in how I was going to get my business off the ground with all that vision mapping and so much about, I knew where I wanted to be, my place in society, but I was finding it difficult to transition there from having worked on myself for many, many years to having almost dropped back to square one or back to the bottom with being off sick for 3 years. And it felt like starting that climb all over again. And so Rory's help has been tremendous in getting me back on my feet, proverbially and literally. So yeah, thank you, Rory. And I tell you, his help is phenomenal. And for me, I know certainly for anybody who wants to get out of that and they're not sure about how to even describe your emotions at this point, you know, whether you're unsure how to describe anything other than happy, sad, angry, or depressed, you're not sure about what all the feelings are that go with that. That is where, for me, I work with people who are looking to gain emotional awareness. Now, I can work one-to-one with people on an individual level. I've got courses online, but I am very interested in working with people who are therapists, coaches, mentors, and trainers who already have those one-to-one clients and want to learn my framework to take to them and use in their rooms and with their clients. And so I'm really excited about where this is going. And I've actually only got, I think, about 3 more spaces left on my program. So anybody who wants to come and find out about that, please do drop me a note. Come and find out on my YouTube channel as well, which is linked from this channel. So if you go and find the featured channels, you can hop over to mine and see more about it on there. So, and the same, Rory's channel is also linked in the featured channels. We have also this week, or in fact today, I'm going to just throw this on the end for anybody who's been brave enough to listen all the way through and is going to make change, and that's the brave part. You are going to make changes off the back of this today. Awesome. And we want to know about it. Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe to follow for more updates and catch up with previous episodes. Reach out to us. Now, we already have the Facebook group, which is the Self-Help Bookshelf, the same as this channel. And we started that back in September last year, September, October. And we have got nearly 200 people in there that we communicate with regularly and supporting other people in that community and through here on YouTube. But from today, we now also have the same community over on LinkedIn, because we know not everybody is on the alternate platform. So if anybody watching this wants to join the Self-Help Bookshelf community on LinkedIn, please do, because it's more than just the podcast for us. We are at the moment a collective. We've created our own little collective here of authors. But more than that, we are self-publishing, self-help authors on well-being topics. And we support each other to support you. And by coming and joining us in these communities, this is being part of the human collective around personal growth. And this is something that's going to give you a big shift to begin with, just joining us there. Now, we run occasional events online, whether it's myself, Rory, or Emma. We run various things online. And we are also all going to be in Stowmarket, a place called Stonham Barns, on the 30th and 31st of August. Now, Rory somehow magically has tucked away a 5-meter yurt hut that he's bringing along. And we are, including me with however my back pain is on the day, we're going to get this yurt hut up. And over the 2 days of the event, we are going to run a series of workshops. Now, more than that, we are then part of a bigger collective. And this is what I love about when you talk about the human collective and stepping into your purpose and your values. We are working with a community interest company called Orion's Embrace, and we're collaborating with the lady who's running this. And we are going to run these workshops for free to support her CIC company. And we are willing to take donations to support the whole effort as well. But we are working in collaboration with her so that she draws more and more people to the event. And we are all going to be there with all of our books as well. So Rory's books, Neurocreative Recollections, Volume 1, will be on the table in the gazebo outside the yurt hut, along with most of my 18 books, journals, and notebooks. And also Emma's Brain Unchained, her harp. She's got another book coming out in June. And Emma is very close to finishing her next book about, is it something to do with whose stuff is it anyway? But it's all about adult relationships with the self and with others and family and, partnership relations. It sounds like an incredible book. And she has been plowing away in the background. I've started my next book as well. And I'm nearly 10,000 words in over the last few days in brain. So this is my first book out of the 18 I mentioned, Brain Unchained. And this is for teenagers and young adults. And there will be a version 2 soon. But I am doing Brain Unchained Adults. And it is going to be far more comprehensive than this. There is a lot going in it, a lot. And I've got nearly 3 A4 pages just of index before I started filling it out. So it's going to be a really heavy book, but it's going to be a very, very valuable resource for personal development and all the kind of things we've talked about today in raising your energy and your purpose, your values. It's all going to be in that book. So thank you today, Rory. And do you want to add any more about what you do? Joy, yay.
Great joy.
Yeah, we have gone on a little bit longer today than we hoped to, but at the same time, if this is valuable information for you, then it's valuable for us to offer that time as well. And time is a value. So thank you for your time. And thank you for your time, Rory, every week. I tell you, this is always an amazing conversation. And we will see you again next week for another high leverage action topic to help you find your higher self within the human collective. See you next week.
Cheers.